What's up, guys? Welcome back. The endeavor for today's video is going to be swapping out my old gauge cluster for one that actually has a tachometer. So let's not waste any time and jump straight into it. I found one that has the tach at the local junkyard that I go to, and the one I found is only about 7,000 miles under what this one says. That's not a huge deal. I would just rather it be as close to the actual miles as possible, you know? And I don't want to mess with trying to roll it back and taking the whole cluster apart, because as we know, me and electronics don't get along. But one of the other reasons is that this speedometer doesn't really work very well. It reads significantly under the speed that I'm actually going, especially when it's cold out. So I'm hoping that's just a problem with the gauge and not with my speed sensor. We will find out. Look, these edges, whatever this material is just disintegrating and making a mess. Just trying to put it up in the window, it just started flaking apart. I guess that's why it was so cheap. I got this for like $5. Now I know why. It helps a little bit, but I just ran my fingers along the edges and got all that black crap off of it so that it doesn't make even more of a mess inside. I have 2 different screws in there. I think I have another one of these laying around with the little bit of a wider head, like a washer. So I want to use another one of these. This is the scary part because I never want to break these clips, but you just kind of pull it. So I wanted to stop here just for a second to say, do not just kind of pull it. You want to unseat the top first and then pull the bottom tabs out. That way you do not scratch the lens like you see me do here. I come to this realization a little bit later in the video and I'll show you then. Oh. This clip was already broken off of here. I glued it back on, but looks like it didn't hold. I'm thinking about swapping the plastic, the clear cover here, keeping this one because it's in a little bit nicer condition. But before I go taking everything apart, I want to plug the other one up just to make sure everything actually works. Now the internet says everything is plug and play. It should all just work, but we will see. This blue one is a little farther over. It's not in exactly the same spot, so it's struggling to reach. It'll work, it's just a little harder to get to. Wish they weren't all so short. I'm gonna get this one in first. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go. All right, it's in. It's just gonna suck to take the back out now. But just to see if things work, and then we'll get it perfect later. So let's get our battery back on, turn the key on, and just see if everything even lights up. Okay, well, so far all that works. We've got a working fuel gauge, all the lights are on, turn signal lights work. I can't see if the actual cluster lights are working. It's too bright in here. So So we can see the ones over here are working. Can't tell if the rest are. I'm probably just gonna swap all the bulbs out anyway for the ones that I have in here, because I know that they work. Let me see if the tack works, because that's kind of the whole reason I wanted this one. Hey. Okay, that's good. We'll figure out if the speedometer works after I get it all finished, because even if it doesn't, that one didn't either. So all right, so I got them both cleaned up. When it comes to all the swirl marks in the plastic, they're about the same. My biggest concern as to why I wanted to switch the glass was this this scuff right here. It looks pretty bad. It's not terrible at the right angles, you know. I didn't like it, so I was gonna switch it, but I just did the same thing onto this one. So I might just try and see if there's a way I can kind of buff that out maybe, and then just leave this plastic on this one. But what that is from is taking this piece off, that little tab in the back. When you pull these out, you kind of got to tilt them this way. And that tab back there just sort of scrapes it as you rotate it out. Ooh. For anybody else that does this, and for future reference, you're actually supposed to pop the top out first and then pull those bottom clips. Pull it out like this. You saw I pulled it this way, and that's why it scratched it. But it's not like super deep scratches, it's just kind of a scuff. So I think I'll be able to maybe polish it out. Before I get into any of that, I'm going to try and swap some of these bulbs out. It looked like this was the only one that was working. So I'm going to swap all mine from this one over to this one. These may not be burnt out. A lot of people don't realize that these bulbs are polarity sensitive. So if you have them in the wrong way, they won't work. You just turn them around and put them back in, and they usually work. But since I know all of my bulbs from this cluster work and are fairly new, I'm just gonna put all of them into this one. Just swap the whole thing straight over. You guys need a different angle here. I don't know if that's any better for you guys. This one's for the fuel gauge. That's an old incandescent bulb. I'm gonna attempt to buff this little scratch out with toothpaste. Apparently that works pretty well with these acrylic plastics. But first we're going to try to get this clip glued back on here a little bit better than it was. I did use E6000 before and it's decent, but there's not a whole lot of surface area here for it to grab, and it stays kind of flexible, which for some applications is good, but for this it just made this kind of break off once pressure was applied. So I'm going to use my JB Weld epoxy. That seems to be working pretty well. If it'll stay there long enough to dry, that looks good enough for me. This stuff does dry pretty quick, so while it's doing that, I'm going to try my hand at the toothpaste polish over here. See what it looks like when we're done. If it turns out pretty good, I'll hit the whole lens with it. Guys, this looks great. It didn't do a whole lot for all the little swirls and stuff, but that big blemish that was right here, completely gone. Well, now my fuel light is staying on, and it looks like this bulb over here is still the only one working. So, I'm going to flip some of the other bulbs around because of that polarity thing I talked about earlier. They might just be in backwards. It's a good thing we checked before I bolted everything up. Okay, so as it turns out, you cannot replace the fuel gauge light with an LED. That's why it was just staying on. I'm not sure why it does that. Probably something to do with the resistance or something. I don't know. I'm not an electrician. So I just replaced that with the original incandescent bulb, and that should solve that problem. These two are just not working. I'll try just flipping them around. And that did it for that one. Flip this guy around. And we're all good. Awesome. Problem solved. So those two bulbs were just backwards. Just want to be very careful not to drop any of these. That would suck if it goes down behind there. If you're lucky, it might fall down under here and fall all the way through, but I know I'm not lucky. Take it for a spin, see if the speedometer works. That's good right there. Exhaust leak is terrible. It is on the list. Hey, it's moving. So far, so good. I love it when things actually work out. Got a tach, got a working speedometer, all the lights work. So there we go. Everything works except our little mileage counter down there. This did click over. As long as that works, that's fine, but it kind of sucks that this one doesn't work. No big deal. That's not really too necessary. Everything important does work, so love that for me. Alright, now one thing I did notice after driving it around for a few days, I thought my fuel gauge was stuck at full because it didn't move for a few days, but it did eventually start going down at a fairly rapid rate. So it'll stay showing full until it gets to about half a tank, and then it'll start going down. I'm not sure of the cause, if it's a resistance thing, some sort of electrical thing, or an issue with the float itself. I'm not entirely sure. So once you start noticing the needle moving, you're at half a tank. And once it gets to the halfway point, it's actually at a quarter of a tank. So that's a minor annoyance, but at least it does work. So if you happen to know anything about that or have any solutions for me, please leave it down in the comments below. The list of things to do to this car keep growing, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to follow along. It helps tremendously and means the world to me. And with that, we're going to close this one out. Peace out, and remember, don't litter.